people have been making a comparison with Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick. Do you believe?
Literally how?
I don't. I haven't seen it. I've been trying to like figure out where they're going with it. But there's been people saying like, okay, Tim Tebow, he's getting a shot to play. Do you feel like it's some sort of slight towards Colin Kaepernick, or is it saying that, you know, Tim Tebow is getting a chance to play and Colin Kaepernick isn't? Where do you fall on that? Because I've been hearing a lot about that, you know, just today, because the story happened. Tim Tebow signed after not being in the game 4 years.
Willie, I'm gonna let you take this one, brother. I know you itch and look. Whenever you see him doing like this,
right,
Mr. Burns.
Okay, what we got? Is that the thing?
So I was gonna let you go first because I wanted to go in on Urban Meyer first, and I love Urban Meyer, but to me, it's two sides of it, right? So of course, and I kind of try to be careful because it's easy to bring up Colin Kaepernick in this moment. Now, don't make no mistake about it. Fair is fair. Dude been out the league for 6 years. 6 years.
That's crazy.
And he comes back and not only does he get a job, he gets a job and tries a new position. But what really makes me upset about it, that's a position that they tried to force on him when he first came out. Remember, he first came out, he should be a tight end. He denied it. Now he gets a second chance. That's like everybody tried to get Lamar Jackson to play receiver. He said, no, I'm play quarterback. He wins the MVP. Do you think if Lamar Jackson didn't pan out at quarterback, he leaves the league? You think they're going to let him come back and try to receiver, get a job as a receiver? I mean, let's be real. Like, so to me, it's like a slap in the face. And I'm glad a lot of the players did call it out. Like, yo, this Cap got, because he took a knee, he can't get a job, but this dude been, and let's be honest, Urban Meyer out here hiring his boys. Look at his whole coaching staff. And let's be honest, he hiring people he knows. But my thing with the Urban Meyer thing, this is off topic, but yo, bro, you couldn't handle college because of your health. What do you think you about to do with a bunch of grown men with kids that are getting paid?
Do you believe, and I ask you this question, do you believe Colin Kaepernick at this point wants to play? Or is he over it after he got his lawsuit bag? He's over it. Like, I'm cool.
Well, you got to think, after he won the lawsuit, he was still trying to petition to play in the NFL.
Right.
Which to me, I don't understand why. It's like, they don't want you here. Why would you want to go somewhere when you're really not wanted? That's just my take. But yes, I think he still feels like, as an elite athlete, he has something to prove. I mean, let's not make no mistake. He has talent. He's been to the Super Bowl. He got mauled when he went to the Super Bowl, but that's something that Tim Tebow has never done before. And so he still feels like he has something to prove, because you got to think, just because of everything that's happened to him doesn't mean he's still not a football player at heart.
Right.
And he also feels like, and he also feels like he's never gotten that shot. And you got to think, at one point, Kat was like the golden boy, right? And now you got Mahomes, now you got Lamar, now you got, Dak is about to come back. You got Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. You got all these other guys, and there wasn't actually that many black quarterbacks in the league when Kat was in there.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. You might have Deshaun Watson, sad. But I think he feels like you got all these black quarterbacks in the league now. It wasn't really that many of us when I was there. So I think he feels like it's a perfect time for him to come back and be able to play. What I recommended, look, man, if somebody did that to me, like they blackballed me, I don't know how that's a win at the end of the day if I came back to play. Because at the end of the day, you already got the money. And Cap, honestly, Cap pissed me off, because he could have took, Cap was trending. He was on a high. He could have basically took that fame that he had in that moment and did anything with it. Did anything. His only thing he wanted to do was go back to the NFL.
I got a question for you, G. Bush. After the NFL paid him off, do we really think that the NFL was going to allow him to even come back and play?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
There's, I go back and look at it. I'll go back and look at when he held his press conference or whatever the case may be. And remember he did the situation where he had to go to the school, and he said, I'm gonna come do my thing here. See, here's the thing about the NFL that people don't understand is they print money. They print money. So when you say how does that mean? Well, the NFL football is so ingrained in the DNA of everybody in this culture, right? You know, you got kids that have been playing since they're 6 years old. You just said something that was brilliant. When you're an athlete, you just don't lose it. Like, even it could be anything going on. That's why I tell people all the time, oh, people's turning off the NFL. Oh, people is upset that people. I said, people ain't turning off nothing. Those are fair weather guys who said they're turning it off, but they don't, because they're still cutting checks for billions on TV deals. It's bigger every single time they sell the rights to the people. You don't lose that. Like when the season starts, there's something inside me that clicks, and it's like, oh no, it's football season. I'm not trying to. I don't care what's going on.
Isn't that crazy, bro?
It's crazy.
That's crazy, because other than Canada, our version of what we call football, American football, exists nowhere else but in the U.S. Right? Basketball is a global sport.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball is an international sport. You know, you look at golf, tennis, almost every other sport, what we call soccer, they call football around the world. That's a global sport. But the NFL is the highest grossing sports league in the world.
Because
right?
We created it. Now
And
we created other things, but
we created other things. And check this out. Baseball is actually older than football.
Yep.
Baseball, a lot of people understand where football started. It started with the Ivy League, right? That was the rich white boys who could, they at that time they were trying to actually mimic the Civil War. That's why it was so like football now is much more toned down than it was when it first started. Football, people used to literally die. Like, it would be a report in the newspaper said, 20 injured, 12 dead. And that was a normal football game because they were literally trying to mimic the war, right? I don't want to get too deep, but basically that's where it started. Started in the Ivy League, and just like Facebook, then it went to the rest of the colleges. And then obviously they said, man, there's money here. But think about football when it first started on a professional level versus where it is now. It's dollars, baby. And I can guarantee you, Willie, you asked a fantastic question. When they paid him off, do we really think they were going to let him come back? Okay. So a lot of times and I have to relate this to police brutality, when somebody gets murdered and they give them these massive payoffs, it's literally so they can't countersue. It's basically hush money, right? Mm-hmm. If they bring Colin Kaepernick back, you know what kind of revolt is going to happen? And we know he didn't disrespect the flag. It had nothing to do with the flag. He was not disrespecting. He was taking a stance against police brutality in America, but they made it about the flag. If he brings him back, they're thinking about PR. They're thinking about, just like the bar owner down in Cincinnati who said, I'm not going to play any basketball games until LeBron James is removed from the league. That's what they're thinking about, because white fans will literally boycott NFL games because Colin Kaepernick has came back. They will say, we're not going to play the games at this bar today or until he's removed from the league. That will happen.
Yeah. There's a thing. And here's where you ask me, like, hey, are they gonna let him back? Here's the thought process. The way the game works is, now with media, you can, if you say something, and I repeat this, if you say something enough times, somebody will accept it. They won't just say, yeah, that was true, or look up whether it was true or false. If you just say it and you got a big enough microphone, if you continue to say it, it'll become facts. So the thought was, Colin Kaepernick, there was people that was making money. I call it's grifters everywhere. I told people like this: if I wanted to really just be rich, like and really make it, I just pull a Jason Whitlock. I just say Colin Kaepernick he doesn't want to play or he doesn't want to do that. And guess what? There will be people who gravitate to that. The bottom line is the league can do what they want because there is no competition and people will watch the game regardless. So if they say, yeah, we blackballed you and we lost the lawsuit, we'll raise our hand and say we did it. And the reason we don't even go to court is because discovery, like you're going to go to court and then he gets discovery and then he can subpoena emails. He can subpoena conversations you had and you got to give it up. No one wants that. Nobody wants to be put in that predicament. So they say, all right, here's your money, go away. The reality of the situation is there are also some people, like you said, he could have said anything he wanted to at that time because he had the world glued to it. Now, some would argue we even had people in our culture who took advantage of it. I talk about it all the time. I like his records, but I mean, Jay-Z basically told people, hey, Colin, we done with kneeling. We finished with that. We're over that. And then took $400 million to then be a part of the Super Bowl. Like he just basically said, hey, let me talk to Kaepernick. I'm with Kaepernick. Psych, it's me. You tell me that I'm going to do the entertainment for the NFL and we'll be good. And guess what? Everybody stood up. Did nobody kneel after that? He was like, Jay-Z has signaled it is okay for us to like sports now again. We can go back to doing the whole thing. We can go back doing the halftime shows and everything because now we have a figure that speaks to more people than just Colin Kaepernick.
So that speaks to the genius of the NFL, though.
Oh, yeah, it speaks to the genius in the NFL, but I gotta touch on that point too.
Okay.
Because again, Kaepernick had the world at his feet and he allowed that energy to dissipate. With kneeling, okay, it presents solidarity. On the Black Culture Podcast, we talk about unity, group economics, working together, et cetera, et cetera. When they were going to do the boycott last year after George Floyd was killed, LeBron said he walked into the locker room, and I don't know if you remember everything that transpired. You know, they kind of got into it or whatever, but he basically said, and he was on Channing Frye and Richard Jefferson's podcast.
Dope podcast, by the way, too.
Yeah, it is a dope podcast. And he said, I would boycott, but what's the plan? Right? There was literally no plan. Like what is the purpose? What is going to be accomplished? And so a lot of times in our culture, we do these boycotts as like, you know how they do the on IG, you make like all of us make a post where you just black out, right? You just black out this day or whatever. What does that do? Right? Like at the end of the day, what does it actually change? And my biggest thing is this: Cap could have launched a huge group economics initiative. Okay, so they don't want to let me play in their league after I'm enslaved for them and this and that. And look, let's boycott everything. Let's boycott the grocery stores and only shop at our stores. Let's boycott this and only, like, he could have taken that to where it actually moved the needle. Kneeling is fantastic for awareness, but then what do you do after that? And so while I don't technically agree the way Jay went about that, I think that could have been handled a little bit more, I don't want to say discreetly, but it ruffled some feathers and kind of rubbed people the wrong way. And the crazy part about that is that the NFL actually approached Jermaine Dupri about that, and Jay-Z told him don't do it, and he ended up doing it with the NFL.
That is the only part I have. He told people the year before, we not doing halftime shows.
Yeah.
And people was with it.
Said it on his album with his wife. He said, tell the NFL we in stadiums too. I mean,
and then you just like, he told him, like,
trust me, Jay, is a capitalist through and through. Let's
be
just
clear.
be clear about that.
Let's be clear.
But at the end of the day, it's our choice. And so here's the thing. All of these movements, or these so-called movements from Black Lives Matter, I don't really support that organization for my own personal reasons. But at the end of the day, what changes? What's going to move the needle? Right?
And you know what's crazy is because and this is the reason why I wanted to bring y'all on to talk about these different things, because I got a diverse fan base. If they get to this point in the video and they can hear a brother say, well, I really don't rock with Black Lives Matter. I don't really like some of the stuff. They'll say, wow, it was 3 Black people in there. And one of them actually said that they don't like Black Lives Matter. Now, the point of the conversation is this. What I've been trying to teach.
Now, let's be clear. I got to say this.
Now, we're going to let you get back in so you can qualify, so you don't get killed by everybody else.
Oh, no, that part I don't care about. When I say I don't support Black Lives Matter, I'm literally just talking about the organization. I'm not talking about I don't think Black lives don't matter.
Yeah, thank you. You pre-qualify that. We are saying, like, we agree with that. But you can disagree with an organization and all of what it's entailing, right? We can have, and I think one of the things that's most important is this. I'm a person, I don't like rhetoric. I like policies better. And when I say policies, I like to talk about, are you aware of who you voting for beforehand, afterhand, just not the president? Are you aware of the houses? Are you aware of the Senate? You aware of the 2-year runoffs? Taxes. Are you listening to everything, right? Are you educating yourself on all of that? Because it matters. All of this matters because, you can't change anything. And and I get it. Some people is disenfranchised with the voting system. I've gone back and forth with people that, are very pro-Black, that talk about the 2-party system and why that's a fallacy, and why voting in a 2-party system does nothing to guarantee something for your community. However, I'm a firm believer in saying you have to work. You can do 2 things at once. You can walk and chew gum while you trying to figure out how to best, go about furthering the Black community independently. You also have to, at the same time, do whatever you can that's best right here in the system that we have, to make sure that you can do both at the same time. You can work on the system now and maximize your community. And you can also do things outside of the traditional bounds of voting to come together and say, okay, well, we could do something as people in that field too.
So I wanted to catch Alex before he got off of that. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, my thing with the Black Lives Matter thing is, my question is, what are they doing right now at this moment? Like, what really kills me is it's all about building up the community, coming together when it's another Black man getting killed. But the work shouldn't start or stop there. Like, right now, it's quiet. It's been a few weeks since something has happened. What are we doing right at this moment to better our community? Now, that's my only thing. Like, let's not just pop up when it's a George Floyd situation, when it's a situation that happened in Columbus. What are you doing right now to better the community? To me, let's be honest, other communities, they're not waiting to something tragic happen to build up their community, to put resources in their community. They're not waiting till somebody died or somebody get murdered. It's an everyday thing for them. So in the Black community, it should be an everyday thing. It should just be when something happens in the community. It shouldn't just be when another police officer kills one of us. That should be an ongoing thing. Every day you wake up, you should try to think of, okay, what can I do to make my community better? What can I do to make my neighborhood better? Like that's my only issue with it, is that it's so strong. You see it when something happens. We come together. We all as one. We lock arms when something happen. Everything cool now. What we doing? What's the movement now?
When you talk about, we can get into, when people talk about systematic racism, right? We talk about racism and we talk about inequality in America. I think sometimes people get a little offended when you say, oh, it's systematically racist and different things. When you talk about systematic racism, do you think this is a product of the fact that when you say systematic racism, no other race of people like has to, those people are coming together because they've never had any of the plights that, Black people had. Like, we don't, Asian people who come to this country through immigration, they don't have to be told to do stuff for their community because they're already here. They already here. But do you believe, and I always try to ask people, and I'm a firm believer that when you talk about one of the residuals of slavery is the fact that those 400 years, this not only disconnected your mind, your body, your soul, I think it disconnected the spirit of Black people in general. When you come in and you come in chains and they tell you don't have a last name, right? You come here and you're here and you don't have you can't read, you can't write. Some of them can't communicate. We speak, there's thousands of dialects in Africa. All of those individuals that came here, they were separated, they were sold to different people, families. Like when you talk about family separation at the border, that's the biggest separation in the history of mankind. So when you see Black people today, there's still residual disconnects between each other because I can want to see you do good, but I don't want you to see you doing better than me. Like I want all the success in the world to your podcast, but I want my podcast to be 70,000. If you got 50, I'll clap it up for you. But if you got any more than me, it's that competitive nature. Everything we got, even our art forms, hip hop comes from poverty. Hip hop is competitive. You don't see two rock bands going back and forth to each other and getting guns. Like, nah, you had a diss record, I'm gonna see you in the street. That don't happen. Do you believe? To me, I think that is some of the reason why we always look for a savior or a movement or a one person when it should be in the identity of every single African American to have that. And I just don't see it, right? I just don't, something will happen and it'll make people be upset a little bit, but they'll be right back to kicking it and chilling because that's trauma, right?
So you made a few points and I gotta address them. The first thing I gotta address is Black Lives Matter, the organization.
Okay.
So what I don't agree with is their agenda, because it's not just Black lives. It's like, for example, when Obama was in office, he was able to pass bills for the LGBT community, specifically for them, for the Hispanics, specifically for them. But when it came to being Black or African American, it had to be minority. A white woman is considered a minority. A dog is considered a minority. Mm-hmm. Anyone, and here's where I'm going with this. When if you read the Constitution, because this country wasn't built for white people, it was actually built for white men. Not even white women weren't even included in that. Let's be clear. When you go and read the U.S. Constitution and it says "we the people," that was for white men. White women were just a little bit above being a slave back then, right? So when you look at that in the system of America, the fabric of it, that's who it was created for. So everything else was built around that. And it's hard to change something when the actual foundation of it is racist and evil and specifically targeted to one group. So back to Black Lives Matter, it's not just for Black lives. And that's my issue. That's a cover. It's not even funded by Black people. The majority of its donations doesn't come from Black people. And so that's why you don't see Willie, to answer your question, their agendas are not to change the socioeconomic status of the Black community. It's sort of just to be a prop, right? So you see them come on the scene when there is media present. But when you're talking about the everyday lives of Black people, they're nowhere to be found. Now, let's get into your question. The systemic fabric of our community and the races. So slavery lasted, I believe, for 246 years. Then after slavery, you had Reconstruction. And right around that time, they also launched Jim Crow, which just ended in 1965. Slavery ended in 1865. So that's another 100 years of torture. They had the reign of terror, where even when slaves were quote unquote free, it wasn't against the law to go kill Black people, right? So then you had Jim Crow. Then you had a bunch of wars, starting with Civil War and whatnot, right? Because now all of a sudden y'all messing up our money down south because y'all letting these slaves go free and we got to pay them. Let's just fast forward for the sake of time. Right after Jim Crow, now you got civil rights, right? Now we want to have these rights because we're no longer looked at as 3/5 of a man. 70s, now you got your, well, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, that was in the 60s. 70s, now you got your Black Panther movement, right? Get rid of all those leaders, right? And then also, that's the beginning of mass incarceration. 80s, you got your crack epidemic. 90s, you got your 3 strikes law, bigger mass incarceration. Also, you have the change or the metamorphosis of hip hop. It goes from being this positive outlook to money, hoes, drugs, guns, let's kill each other, let's shoot each other. And, you know, all of that going along with the corporate America, the justice system, the education system, prison system, police brutality, music, television, all of that programming from the time you're born, that's the product you're getting. So you talk about somebody coming over from China or Japan or Korea or India or Saudi Arabia or even Nigeria. They look just like us, but their programming is different because they had the opportunity to program their kids, to teach their kids, and to grow up in an environment where everybody looks like them. 70% of this country is white, right? So you honestly think that we really want to change the fabric of this nation that caters to us? Absolutely not. And this is why I preach group economics. It takes a certain mindset to go spend your money somewhere, right? I actually put out a tweet today and I said, you know, in our community, the goal is to get the bag versus the goal being the community. See, the difference with those communities, the money is the hammer and the nail, right? And the hammer and the nail, their money is used to build up their community. In our community, it's the reverse. So we don't want to prosper together. I need to get my bag, whether it's getting drafted in a league or I start a business or drug, whatever, in order to just take care of me and mine, and then I leave. Versus them, they'll move to the hood, they'll all live together, and then they'll build up that area, right? A lot of the areas you see where it's quote unquote Asia town, Little Italy, Chinatown, whatever, it didn't look like that when they first got there. Trust and believe that. But they all pulled their money, pulled their resources, worked together, and they built it up, and now it's theirs. That's the biggest difference. And the end of that tweet was, if we did that, then we could all prosper together. That to me is the coldest protest, and that to me is getting the bag for real. That's the highest level of getting the bag, when it's not just you, it's all of us.
Dope. I think that's dope. Willie, do you got something to add to that? In terms,
I mean, I ain't about to come in after that. He pretty much done said it all, man. I'm gonna let that one. I'm gonna let that marinate.
we went around the world on that one, dog. We went through about 400 years. I'm over here like, yeah, dog. Let's talk to him,
bro. But like,
and let that sink in.
But to your point, it was absolutely designed. It's designed, and so part of the agenda of Black Lives Matter is to destroy the nuclear family. So we already got it where, you know, we're missing all these Black fathers. I commend my partner, Willie. He's a Black father that is present. He's a presence for his wife. He's a presence for his children, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of us in our community that don't have that. And it might sound like a small thing, but having the presence of a man, right? Because there's not that many black teachers as far as males. There's not that many black male teachers. So our young boys don't even get that presence at school. There's a lot of male white teachers and of other ethnicities, but there's not. But to be at home, to be able to come home to a man and have that as an example versus being raised by a single woman, that's a big deal. And that's going to change your entire outlook on life, right? So there was an agenda, bro. I wouldn't mind talking about, and I actually thought about this earlier, the agenda that is hip hop. The agenda that is hip hop, because hip hop is not, unfortunately, sending a message that is causing our children to think of themselves as successful. It's sending a much different message, a very harmful message. And Willie, you brought up a good point. You said when you listen to other genres of music that's predominantly white, you don't hear those messages at all.
Now, I'll say this, and see, this is going to be, when y'all come back, this ain't the first time y'all going, we got to get it, that hip hop conversation shall be had.
Oh, yes,
like
sir.
we got, because once again, it goes to the cultural significance of, your entertainment field. So I look at it this way. Some would argue that hip hop is just a reflection of what people see in their community. So if you say, okay, I live in South Central LA, Ice Cube, Ice-T came out with a this is crazy. He came out, now that we look at it, he come out with the record Cop Killer. So you channel, like, you look at it now, first of all, it just goes to show you, people say, well, what about the progress? And I'm like, there hasn't been that level of progress that people have been seeing. What's been happening in the communities with, police brutality, so it's continued to go. Drug dealers, drugs, single parent homes, and high incarceration rates. All those things have been going on since the 80s. Some say that hip hop to it, the reason, and I always claim this too, hip hop is the realest, most popular genre in most influential genre in the world. I always tell people, you can't go, I don't care if it's a bunch of white people. If you go into a party and you want to have, when the last time somebody played Led Zeppelin in a party? If you at a wedding, ain't nobody playing that stuff. They playing your classics, the California Love. Hip hop is that popular. And the reason it's that popular is because the content puts you on the doorstep in the hood. Like, it's Alonzo in Training Day, and it puts you there. And for anybody who loves art and who loves movies, they can watch, The Exorcist, or they can watch Terminator, or they can see a bunch of stuff. But the reason why hip hop is so crazy is because the authenticity of the art form is live and direct. So, some people will say, well, I talk about drugs dealers in the hallway. That's what I saw. Like, maybe people that live in rock and roll and country, they talk about their dog and their woman breaking up with them and they pick up trucks. That's what they see. But I will say this, there is a level of asking yourself, at what point does even hip hop have to have diversity where you can still show, sex and drug dealing and those things, but you also have another opportunity in a lane where it's balanced and saying, yes, you can be successful doing that, but here's another way you can be successful. Look at the message of this person, right? And I think we too far in one bag. Like, we too far in that bag. But listen, I'll tell you what, we got about less than a minute to go. What I want to do is I want to couch this thing, and I want to come back and get you guys on next week and talk about that exact topic, because I think it's important. I think it's needful. And I think you guys bring a perspective that people should hear, right? And so, you know, I appreciate you fellas coming on, dropping your knowledge, and contributing to this platform in terms of just being real and talking about culture, so you can get a peek into what Black America is and the topics that affect us.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the dog, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate you, man. Make sure you shout out your situation, where you at, where can they find you, where they can subscribe, and please do so, because this is important.
You can find our content on Apple Podcasts, Google, and Spotify, and we're also on. You can find us on Pandora. We just got on Pandora too, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at the Black Culture Podcast.
Man.